Welcome to Podnutz Pro, episode number 7. The show being held to critical acclaim, I might add. No, actually, seriously, we're getting out so much good response about this show. It's astounding, and I'm really happy about that. So I'm glad you guys are liking it. And I'm going to thank both of our hosts here in a second. Podnutz Pro is a show where we take you from residential computer repair, take you to the step into business, small business, enterprise stuff, business class hardware, different things you should know if you want to take that step. And a lot of guys, I'm finding out from the emails and stuff, really want to take that step. So I'm really glad that this show can help you with that. And that's what we do. So we do it with the help of our co-hosts, Matt Rainey from ahcomputers.com. What's going on, Matt?
Oh, it's same old Steve. How are you?
Awesome. And
Good.
Lalo Waffle House Nunez. What's going on, Lalo?
Hey, what's going on out there?
Lalo's a Waffle House lover.
Yes,
I tried to give him a hard time about it before the show started, but I think I might be the one that's in the wrong.
you are in the wrong.
Okay.
Hey, and Steve, Happy New Year.
We love to say Happy New Year here. And like I said, we like to try to help you guys take the step from fixing home computers, desktop, small business, or residential to small business. And we bring different topics each week that help kind of cover the whole gamut of that. And what are we going to talk about this week, Matt?
Well, this week we're going to talk about how to handle the different types of software that businesses run, dealing with the software vendors or the hardware vendors that come in and do things with companies that you need to be involved with and be as a liaison between the customer and these vendors.
Okay. Sounds good. Want to get us rolling?
Sure. One thing that I think in home user support, I think a lot of this home user support is a customer might call you and say, how do you use this program? How do I rip DVDs? How do I edit pictures? How do I do this and that? So you got a lot of application support, I think, and home user support. Is that what y'all see a lot?
Yeah, I agree.
Steve. So, in business, you have applications also. It's just they're not the same kind of programs. When you're home user support, you're pretty much on your own on how to use these programs. I mean, these programs aren't difficult for home users. If a home user had any kind of computer knowledge at all, they could probably figure it out themselves. It's more
Right.
of how do I use this program, not I'm getting an error in this program. They want to show you how to use it.
I see.
Okay. So when you're doing support for business, a lot of times, when I see other people doing support for businesses or we get a new tech, they're a little nervous on when they get a call out for whatever line of business app that this company is running. So, accountants have the programs they use to do their accounting work. Doctors have their software that they'll use, specific to their line of business. So it's wide variety of applications depending on what the company is doing.
Okay.
There's lots of different kind of payroll applications, accounting applications, that are enterprise level, not just your standard QuickBooks.
Right.
QuickBooks support's pretty easy. There's not much that goes wrong in QuickBooks that you can't find on Google or the QuickBooks knowledge base.
Okay.
But some of these programs get really complex, and for whatever reason, they don't have good forums or they don't have good searches on Google to get these errors, because some of these errors are really particular. So a typical example is, let's say an accounting office. They're going to use Lacert. It's the name of their tax software.
Lacert?
Lacert, right.
Okay.
So when the first time I saw Lacert, I had no idea what it is.
Right.
And that's common because you go into a business, whatever application they're running that they make money with, that's what they're using. You're not going to be familiar with all these programs. There's no reason, and you can't expect to know how to use these programs or how these programs work. That's not what you're there for. But when they call and they say, I'm having an issue in my Lacert software, and it can be anything crazy like when I try and process this tax return, the user's address is not showing up when I print it. But on the screen, it shows when I print it, it's not there. What do? I mean, you don't know these programs
Right.
and how to support it or how the program works. I'm not a programmer. I didn't write Lacert, and that's just one example.
So
You
what
know,
do
you
you
go
do?
to
What do you do?
well, you know, the most important thing, and it seems basic to me, but we have some techs that just spend, they might spend hours and hours trying to Google search that particular problem for whatever the problem is on this specific application. You know, the problem with that is you're wasting you're wasting your time by trying to search for this stuff. I mean, and I'm not saying don't do any troubleshooting. You know, you're a tech, you do some basic troubleshooting. You know, if one person's having an error in the application, go to a different computer, see if they could try the same function, see if it happens on a different computer.
Okay.
That'll tell you some things on where to go. If it doesn't happen on another computer, well, then you might just need to repair the application, uninstall, reinstall, that kind of thing. If you're getting an error, that's one thing. But sometimes you don't even get an error. And I had this assert problem where the data is just not there. There's no error. It's just data when it prints, the print preview looks fine, but when they print it, there's no information, just a blank form. So there's no error to troubleshoot there. I mean, no error code.
Right.
So it all depends on what you're getting. Are you getting an error? Is it a Windows error or is it an error that's generated by the program? You have to know how to know the difference. I think most techs can tell if it's a Windows issue or a program issue. The customer probably can't, but we should be able to tell.
Well, the problem is the customer expects you to know both.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I did a law firm. I remember because I did a couple small businesses when I had my shop, and they use Abacus, and that's a software they use, and I had to install it on machines and stuff. And this is the kind of thing, like as a tech, you become comfortable with your tools. You like going out on jobs because you feel like you know how to handle them. And then when you're going into an area where you have to know the software and you don't know what it is, that's the kind of jobs you just don't want to go on. You know what I mean? So it's what do you do? What do you do? Like just try to determine the difference. And if it's a vendor's or a software problem, you tell them to call the vendor or.
Well, see, I don't. Like Abacus, we have law firms and they use Abacus as well. And there's different things. So they may say, well, I want this data should be showing up on my phone too, because there's an app that's supposed to copy data to my phone and it's not there. Well, okay, is it a phone issue? Is it the syncing between the phone and the computer? Is the application not sending it to the phone? There's a lot of different things that it could be. So in those cases, the applications that the businesses used. Okay, well, first of all, businesses aren't like homes. They don't just load garbage to load garbage. Okay. They load stuff that they use in business that makes them money. So usually the only things running on their computers in a perfect world are things they're supposed to run.
All right.
Okay. So when these programs don't work, the customer is losing money, they have downtime. They don't want this stuff to not work. And your issues are not usually, how do I use this program? Like a lawyer's not going to ask me, hey, how do I put entries into Abacus? What do I do? I don't do that kind of support. Okay. If they want to learn how to use a program, they can usually ask a coworker who knows how to use it, not pay a technician to try and show them how to use it.
Right.
So usually it's more questions of it's not working right. What do I do? Rather than how do I use it?
Okay.
So when they don't work, all these places, Abacus, Lacert, Great Plains, whatever a Job Boss, Mass 90, whatever the application is, if it's important to the business, the one thing I tell them for sure that you need is a service agreement or software assurance or whatever the company calls it, to where you can call and get tech support for this software. Because you get some kind of cryptic error in Abacus or Mass 90, and really, they don't want to pay me to dig around and spend hours and hours wasting my time and theirs. And I can't bill for that. If I have a tech that spends 4 hours trying to figure out what this error in Mass 90 is and he doesn't have any luck, I can't bill for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, it's different. You do a little bit of basic troubleshooting to see if you can fix it real quick. But if not, the next step is call them. I see a lot of techs that just don't want to call. They want to fix it themselves. They think that it's giving up if they call software support.
Right.
But that's not giving up. That's what you should be doing. I mean, First of all, we recommend that the company has that software assurance or service agreement or tech support agreement. They're paying for it, so why not use it? If you're trying to fix it yourself, they're paying the software company for support. They're paying you for support. You're wasting their time. You're wasting everybody's money. So just call. And I don't usually tell the customer to call.
All right.
I'll offer to call.
Okay. I did that too. You're right. It's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, and I agree because these folks on the other end of the phone, when they hear it's a technician, they're more willing to help you out because they can walk you through steps that they could not walk through ordinary a user. So,
Or worse, they try and walk an ordinary user through it, and it gets screwed up so much that it's just a catastrophe after
Yeah.
that.
Do you know that relief that the person that you're calling feels when they finally understand that you're just not an idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so the tech support person, it's their nature. I think they want to get their call closed out.
Right.
right.
So a customer may call and say, "I can't open the software." Well, that's not really true. You may be able to open the software, but then you're getting an error once you're in it. So they may work through some issues and say, "Okay, does it open now?" Yes. Okay. Well, thanks for calling. Bye. And then 2 minutes later, there's an error that they were just getting and it's not resolved. Oh, now I got to call them back. So, I offer to call mainly because I don't want the tech support person screwing something up by having the user do something that he shouldn't. I've had many issues where the customer tried to call before they called me. They called support, software support, and they have them uninstall all the software.
Oh man.
They delete data, and then they'll reinstall the software. It's a blank database, but it opens fine. Okay, your issue's resolved. You can now open it. Well, what about my data? What about all the other users who can't open it now because we just reinstalled it to a different place on the server? So bad things can happen when you have customers try and call support.
Right.
Now, what I do is I offer to call. Some places, let's face it, they don't want to pay. They'll say, "Well, I call them," and that's their choice. If they screw it up, they're going to end up paying you more
Right.
to go back out there. But I offer to call, but I have that customer stay with me because it's going to happen to where they're going to do something, and they're going to say, "Let's test it now." Well, I don't know how to test it.
Right.
I don't know how to use that software. So you have to have the customer say, "Okay, now you try it."
Right.
I have many times when when I show up, the customer says, "Okay, I'm going to lunch." And I'd say, "Well, no. You're not going anywhere. And if you want to leave, then I can come back when you're able to work on it too, because I need you here, or I need somebody here
Right.
that knows exactly what the problem is so we can see if it's working." And it's usually best to have the person who called who knows what the issue is, because I've also seen many times where they tell, and it happens a lot in law firms. Law firms are famous for this. The lawyer has a problem with their software. They tell their secretary, "I'm having an error in this program." And the lawyer leaves. And I show up and I talk to the secretary. "Is he here?" "No, he left. But he told me what the problem was." "Okay, well, can you show me?" "No." "Well, how are we supposed to know if it's working?" "Well, don't you know how to use it?" "No, I don't know how to use your software." So I leave. The lawyer gets back in. He's upset because it's still getting an error. And I tell him, "I need you there when I show up." But lawyers, their time apparently is more valuable than anyone else in the world. And they don't want to sit around. So I tell them, if you're not going to be there, you need to not just tell her, walk your secretary through it. She needs to be able to show me what the issue is, and she needs to know how to know if it's working or not. So this goes on forever, and lawyers are famous for this. So I know it's hard to pin them down, but I just tell them, if you want this resolved, you have to be there. If you're not there and I show up, you're getting charged for my call if it's fixed or not. So you're going to be wasting money, basically. So pin them down, have them stay there so they can test it.
Good.
That's the two things. Call support, have them there. You're just a middleman. You're there to make sure that the software vendor does not screw it up. Because I can't tell you, it happens almost every time, Steve. And you say Abacus. I had an issue with Abacus. These software packages can be installed different ways. It can be a client server. It can be a standalone. And the tech support person may not spend the time to see how you are installed. They'll just assume you're installed a certain way, and that's what they go with.
Right.
So when they try and reinstall it, now nobody can work because they reinstalled it wrong. It's just a nightmare. You're there. It's protecting your customer, but a lot of times the customer doesn't necessarily want you to spend time on the phone for 3 hours.
Right.
But
no, I
warn them, if I'm not here, be careful of what they want you to do. And it happens. I mean, it's the customer not wanting to spend money sometimes. But once they get burned once, they'll let you do it from then on out.
Right. Yeah, it's like you said. If you just give them right up front that you're gonna have to pay for this, if you're not gonna be here, like you just set the rules straight right away and let them know that they're gonna get charged. I think that the motivation of them not getting or them having to pay extra for certain things was usually enough for them to do what you ask them to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But some clients are just famous for as soon as you show up, they want to leave. Oh, if I can't work, I'm going to leave.
Right. Right.
They love it. They love it.
They're hungry. They just had a hard day at work.
I love when they want me to show up for lunch. Let's work on it during lunch so we're not all down. That's fine. I'm used to eat lunch at 2:00 in the afternoon, but yet they want to go to lunch. I say, well, one of y'all is going to be hungry with me because I need one of y'all here.
Mary.
Now, and you
Always
can't,
Mary.
like I say, you can't expect to know how to work all these programs. These people work with this software every day. I'm not nervous at all. If I go to a company and they have software I've never seen, it doesn't bother me at all. I ask them, is this software current? Is it the latest version? Can we call support? And they'll know if they can call. A lot of times, if they don't know, they'll say, I don't know. Okay. They never say no. It's either yes or I don't know. And if it's I don't know, that means they have never called them.
So you don't have any adverse reaction when you go into some place where the software you never heard of it.
No,
you can't.
Doesn't bother me.
You can't. I mean, there's so many applications. The job that I work at, we have over 300 and something applications, and I don't know how to use most of them. I know how to install it. I know to make sure that the user can log in, but like Matt's saying, it's up to the user. I don't know how to run reports, or I don't know how to run. I mean, there's just way too much to know. That's their job, and like Matt's saying, there's someone administrative there, a senior ranking person, the Mary, that knows how to work with the program, that can run the report and say, all right, guys, it works great.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's the extent of it. Know how to install it, and know how to make sure they can log in.
Right.
And the key is when I do go someplace new, we have a client a software folder basically, and in there we have for pretty much every software package. If there's not instructions on how to install it, we create step-by-step instructions on how to install it. Because if a tech goes behind me and doesn't know how to install it, he knows to look because we have the same folder everywhere, a software folder, and he knows to look in there first. Look for that application, look for the README, their step-by-step instructions. That way we're not wasting time trying to remember, how do you install this? How do you install this? In a new tech, if he knows one of us has been out there, can go easily look and see how to install stuff. So he doesn't have to, when he's on a job, he doesn't have to call me and say, hey, how do I install a cert again? It's there written for him. He can follow the steps.
Right.
So it just makes it quick for the customer. It makes us look more competent, because if we can go in there and install it and be done, not, let me see, how do I do that? Let me look around. You're clicking around. They can tell you don't know what you're doing. Now, it's okay if you haven't been doing work for them for years and years, if you just started, but, you send a tech in for someplace you've been working for 5 years, they should know how to do it.
Right. And what Matt had brought up a good point a little bit earlier, the easiest troubleshooting, especially with applications I don't know how to work, I asked the question, is there someone that is working? So I go over there and I see if I can reproduce the problem. He'll tell you one or two things. The problem is on the actual PC on the client side, or if there's an application that's installed on the server and it doesn't work for multiple folks, and then the problem is on the server end.
Yeah, and you'll pick some stuff up along the way, like Lacert. I've been dealing with Lacert since Lacert 96. Every year Lacert comes out with a new version. So Lacert 2010 just came out. I've been dealing with Lacert for 14 years.
Wow.
So, you pick stuff up after a while, the basic things that can go wrong, and you kind of know. But that over time you'll learn that stuff. But when I first started supporting Lacert, I had no idea what to do. And the thing with Lacert is good as an accounting software package because basically you buy it every year, and when you buy it, you have support for it. So Lacert's unique that it comes out every year, and the accountants have to get it. Some packages like time slips or Peachtree or Mass 90, you don't have to have the support contract with it. You can just buy the software.
What's Mass 90?
It's accounting, inventory,
Okay.
all that stuff. A lot of places around here use that.
Okay.
It's pretty complicated software. I can get to a login screen.
Yeah.
I can install it. But
Right.
to use it and run reports and
Right.
I don't even care. It's not my job.
Right. And don't be afraid to call, because some of these applications I run through for the 12 years that I've been doing this, it comes out with a funky error. Error ABC123 doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But you call support up and they go, oh, you have to re-register these files, or you have to modify this INI file, and you, like Matt said, you document that, and you never have that problem again. These folks wrote the application. They're paying for the support. You can call them up and get the answer.
Right.
Not you'll be there for hours. Don't try to look like a hero, because you're going to look like a fool.
Exactly.
Good
Yeah, they
point.
know all the issues with the software. So I've never seen the issue. Maybe that error, like Lalo says, I've never seen that error in this program, but they have it well documented. You call them, here's a fix.
Right.
And if it's not an easy fix, it's if it's complicated for them, that really you didn't have a prayer to fix it yourself.
Right.
So, let's see. Oh, another thing with the support. So if I go someplace, and they don't have a service agreement with some software, of course I recommend that they get it. And if they don't have a support agreement with the software, there's probably some new versions out that they should update to. I've had issues where they just use the same software for years and years and years and years, and then have an issue. Well, they'll call for support. That's okay. We'll call and get the support now because now we need it.
That sounds like something I would do.
Yeah. Well, the problem is you're running a 4-year-old version. That version is not supported anymore.
Right.
So they say, well, if you buy the new version, we can help you. Okay. Well,
I hate
we'll
that.
buy the new version. Well, guess what? With that version, I've had issues where if it's too old, you can't port your data into the new version.
Right.
That's just lame. If you ask me, that's just software companies having you buy the cojones and just take
I
it for a
don't know,
ride.
But
every year.
I've seen companies where they go 7 years and they're running a program from 7 years ago, and it's changed so much since then that they said we can't the format the data in,
Right.
it's not compatible.
I guess. Okay.
So it does happen. So I've had places where, they're forced to upgrade, and then, okay, their computers may be too old. This new version needs a better computer. This new version might need this and that. So, and it's the same thing. People wonder why their computers get slow. Well, if they are updating their software but not their hardware, of course their computer's going to be slower. So they just keep the same software forever. It runs fine, but then when they have an issue, they have a big issue.
Right.
And it's not so much an accounting software, like, because usually companies will have to keep up with the new versions for payroll and things like that. But it's some other things that may not seem as mission critical until they're down.
Right.
Right. And
And then
also, I'm sorry, Matt.
Oh no, go ahead.
And also, if you have a maintenance agreement, a lot of times the vendor will let you know, here's service pack for this application, here's a known bug, and a lot of times you can apply these fixes and avoid, a big bomb going off there.
Right. It's more of an incremental thing to have these support agreements than a big issue once in a while. So now you also have, in addition to all this software stuff, you also have hardware vendors coming in, trying to, they may need security camera system that they may call for someplace, some kind of specialized hardware. If it's a machine shop, they may have some machines that need to tie into the network. they may call a copier place and get a network scanner. There's all kind of different hardware vendors that need to come in and they need to tie into your system. It's important to let your point of contact know that if they're adding any new hardware, they need to call you just to make sure that they're not screwing something up.
Well, they're gonna love that because they got to pay you to come out now.
Well, here's what happens a lot of times. Let's say they get a network scanner, and a tech goes out there, and usually he's gonna say, "What IP address can I have?"
Mm-hmm.
And they're gonna say, "I don't know. What do you mean?" So if he asks, that's good because then they'll call me. If they don't ask, I've seen sometimes where they just set it on DHCP, and then they go around and install the printers everywhere, printing to that IP address, but it's on DHCP with no reservation.
Oh man!
So it may work while they're there, but then 3 days later, when it gets a new IP address, it's not going to work.
Nobody can print.
Or they'll just pick an IP and assign it as a static IP address to the printer, and now you're getting an IP conflict on some other workstation. So a lot of times they're gonna run into problems.
Yeah.
They come in and try and do things themselves.
And it happens all the time. What Matt is saying, I've seen it time and time. I've seen servers go down because they use the same IP address as the server. I mean, it just happens. Anything that touches that network, they should be calling you at least to ask you. Because if you leave it up to them, it's not their fault. It's that they don't know how your networks run. I can guarantee that you can walk into 10 different offices and the network is set up just a little bit different. You can't apply the same scheme to all of them. So,
Yeah. So these
good
security
point.
cameras and the cameras, they're gonna want, more than likely, if they have security cameras, they're gonna want to see it from outside the network. So you've got to go in there and open ports in the router anyway. There are things usually that you have to do that the vendor coming in is not going to know to do, or not going to want to do, or shouldn't do. So they all need to call you just to make sure, like I said, the network printers and that stuff, printers I like to do reservations for, so I can see in DHCP what the IP address is. A lot of times these techs will say, no, it's got to be static. I can't have I can't have DHCP. And I think they just don't understand. Yes, your printer is set to DHCP, but my server's always going to give it the same IP address. So, if you have to keep giving out static IPs to different machines, you got to keep track of that.
right.
It happens sometimes where they just don't want to put it on DHCP.
Right.
So I usually keep some kind of text document on the server with a list of IPs. And I usually try and keep those in the same range. So if I'm doing a 1.1 range or 1.x range, I might put all my statics up around 240 to 250 or 230 to 250, somewhere in there. But, I'd rather put them on reservations.
Right. And
so I can see it.
And what Matt is talking about, what he'll do in DHCP is grab the MAC address or wherever that network card is attached to that printer. So no matter if it's on DHCP, it boots up. Your server knows, this is this MAC address. This should get .241 at all times. So you're not dependent on that technician putting a static IP.
Yeah, by default, a lot of these things are set on DHCP, especially as network printers.
Right.
So a lot of times, as soon as they connect it, I can look in DHCP and I can see what IP address it is. I can see what MAC address it has, and I can just do it from there. But I think that'll be a whole other show as DHCP. But just know that these hardware vendors, that you should be the liaison between any person coming in and tying into your network, either hardware or software being run. You really want to be involved in that to make sure things go smoothly.
Right. And then as time passes, a lot of times you'll see the vendor over and over again. You build a relationship with the guy or the girl, and you'd be surprised in how each job gets a little bit easier. For if you run into a situation, then you can get them like a phone call. So after a while, you just start to build these relationships with some of these vendors.
It's a good one.
And you have to think as ISPs as vendors too. They're just selling you something different. They're just selling you internet. ISPs are, great for telling the customer the wrong thing or just telling them enough to get you off the phone. You know, because the ISPs actually is the one person I don't mind telling the customer they call my internet's down. Well, I haven't checked the modem, checked the router, power cycle it. If if you're not getting a link light or a status light on your modem, it's probably your internet's down. I don't mind telling them in that instance, call your ISP, report the outage,
Right.
and see if there's an outage in the area. If they say no, there's no outage in the area, let me know and I'll come out. If they say yes, there's an known outage, then wait till it comes back up.
Right.
That's the only time I really, and there's certain instances, like there's some vendors that I know what they're doing. So I have one company in mind that I don't mind him logging into the server and doing his stuff because I know he knows what he's doing. And I know that only because the person, this point of contact, had already given them the login information to the server, and he's already been doing it for years and years, and the software's been running, and he hasn't screwed up. And I just don't know about it. So usually when I find out that he's been doing it, I'm like, well, I guess he knows what he's doing because he hasn't crashed the server, and his software's running. So,
Right.
it's more of an accident than recommended. But sometimes you have no control. It is their server after all.
Right.
They want to get the login to somebody that they can do that.
Right. And then there's some of the vendors that they're nice, but you want to be there at all times.
Right. And the ISPs, if the internet's out and I've seen people call and they have them do strange stuff. They say, well, hook your computer right to the modem. Well, customer doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Plus the modem's in some closet somewhere. So, and I tell the customers, only tell them there's an outage. If they want you to do anything other than power cycle the equipment, call me and I will come out there. But they think they're doing right because the ISP is telling them to do this. Even though I've warned them, don't do anything else, call me and then I'll come out there and call them. Or call me and do a conference call and I'll talk to him too, see what he wants you to do. I'm going out sometimes where they say, well, only one of us can get online now. No one else can. Okay. I go out there and the person ran a cable from the modem to their computer and just has a DHCP. They have a static IP on the router, but to get them up and running, they just left their computer on DHCP, pulled the wrong IP address, and now this computer is right on the internet.
It has all the bandwidth to itself.
And according to the ISP, great, it's working. Well, thanks for calling. Well, that's not working.
Right. Right.
Thanks, Mary.
So, I go out there, I put the static IP address on the computer because that's a good way to test. Put the static IP they're supposed to be having on the computer. Can it get online now? No. Well, there's a problem with the IP address then.
Right.
You're not going to, now if your router was on DHCP before, that's fine. Plug it back into the router, see if it works. But 99% of all my businesses have static IPs. So again, the ISP is just wanting to get you off the phone. You're on the internet, it works fine. Thanks for calling. It's not their problem. When you call back, you'll get someone else, more than likely, it's their problem. So you just got to warn them again. Don't do anything else other than turn off and turn on the stuff and call me back. And that it sounds pretty easy. Just call the software vendor, deal with the hardware vendors. But I see so many times it's not done. They tell the customer to call the software vendor. They let the hardware vendors have free range over the network, and they give them the login to the server, and things just don't go well when that happens. And when things go bad, they're gonna look at you.
Right.
It's true.
So again, this goes back to your reputation, how they perceive the job that you're doing. Even though you didn't touch it, even though it's somebody else, they're going to look at you to fix it.
Exactly.
And why is my network running this way? They're not, a vendor might come in and change some settings and now nothing works. But they're going to want to know why you set the network up the wrong way, because obviously it was wrong, because all he did was install a printer and now nothing works. Well, he gave the printer the same IP address as your server or your router,
Right.
Yeah.
or he disconnected he might need this plug, this network jack, so he unplugged it and plugged his stuff in.
Yep.
You know, these people, because he just wants the printer to work. He doesn't care if nothing else works. His job is to install a printer, as far as he's concerned. Does not care.
Gotta keep in
So-
mind, especially when you're dealing with like a network. Think of it, you are the quarterback. So even though you deal with these vendors, you're guiding the play. You are overseeing on what's going on, because I mean, the stuff as simple as it sounds, it happens all the time. I mean, yeah, many long nights I've spent overnight at places.
And it's the strangest stuff. I've seen somebody come in to install a piece of hardware and they need a power plug. Well, they just unplug whatever's plugged in and plug their stuff in.
It happens.
And when they come in and whatever else is not working, and I say, was it plugged in? Yes. Well, okay, you didn't check that fast, because when I asked you, you said yes right away. I want you to go look and see if it's plugged in. We can't assume that it's plugged in. Never assume anything in
Yeah.
troubleshooting. I have one customer, I'm thinking of one in particular, where they have an external tape drive and it's plugged into the battery backup, as it should be, and somebody came in to do something. I forget what it was, but they wanted to plug in an external hard drive. Well, there was no plug in the battery backup. They were full. They just unplugged something, plugged their external hard drive in. When they were done, they left. Well, the client called me a week later saying my backup had been failing for a week. And of course, they want to know what's wrong with the hard drive. What's wrong with this tape drive you sold me?
Right.
It's not backing up. Come to find out, it's not plugged in.
Did you ask him to check if it was plugged in, or did you just go out there?
Well, it kept showing offline. And when I logged in remotely, it kept showing offline. So I told her, well, we need to make sure it's plugged in, and we need to reboot the server to see if it picks the tape drive back up. So when she went to go, check and see if it was plugged in, it wasn't plugged in. I said, who unplugged that? Well, I don't know. Nobody touches this stuff. That's what they always say. No one touches this stuff.
Except
But then
you.
they come back and remember, oh, wait a minute. This guy was here last week. He had to plug in something.
Right.
Well, okay.
It sucks.
But it always comes back on you.
Of course.
You're the one that's responsible for it. And I don't know why these people don't blame vendors more. If I go out to fix a printer, and I think we've said this before, if I go to fix a printer and somebody's, word doesn't autocorrect a week later, it's my fault. But yeah, when these vendors come in and make changes and things stop working at that exact moment, they don't put that together.
Mhm.
So it's your responsibility. They pay you to keep the network running. They pay you to deal with the software vendors because they don't really want to deal with it.
That's why they don't get mad at the vendors, because they're paying you.
I guess so. But well, they're paying the hardware vendor to come in.
Yeah, I guess so.
And they're paying the maintenance contracts with the support with the software vendors. But there's a few rare instances where they'll admit, yes, this person had me uninstall Mass 90 off the server. Okay. Well,
Yes.
you thought that was what you should do? Well, they told me to. Okay. Well, I tell my kids, if somebody tells you to jump off a cliff, not to do it, but
Yeah.
okay.
But he was so nice on the phone.
You assured me I wouldn't care. about jumping off a cliff. So anyway, I think it's common, but I've been doing this for a while. But I have new techs that come in that they spend so much time trying to troubleshoot this, and it doesn't even cross their mind, oh wait, I should call support. They call me and they say, look, I've been working on this for a while. They're still getting this error. What do I do? And of course I say, did you call support? No. Okay, call support. I mean, it seems easy to me, but some people just don't think of it. And if you're
Right.
new to this, if you're new to supporting businesses, you may not even realize that this is an option for you.
Right. That's a good point. Why we're talking about it now.
Yeah.
Raise their awareness.
Yeah, because most
it's,
folks.
it's not giving up. It's not saying that you don't know what you're doing. it's showing that you do know what you're doing by calling the people who can fix the problem. You know,
Well,
I I am a Microsoft partner, so when things go wrong on Windows or an Exchange server or a file server, I can call Microsoft. It's the same kind of thing. It's more
Right.
high level, but I can call Microsoft with this issue.
Hmm.
I don't have to rely on Google or spend time searching forums.
Right.
You know, if it's mission critical, I just call my support number. I'm talking to an engineer in 5 minutes.
right.
You
What
know,
were you
get
gonna
some
say?
backup sooner.
Hmm.
So don't be afraid to call the person who wrote the software to get the support that you need.
Right, and in most cases, will find out that if you deal with a business environment, they buy an application. A lot of times they include or slip the maintenance in the contract. Like they don't make it an option. They sound it. This is so much for the application. Here is the maintenance, and your total is so much because they have to support it. So they might not know that they don't have a maintenance on a product or not.
Good
So-
point. Because they bought it.
right.
They bought it. It wasn't advertised when they bought it because they were trying to slip it in there.
Right, because you have to keep in mind when they get approved. I think we spoke about this last week. It gets approved to accounting. The president he signs it, stamps it, a check that goes out, and you're good. So
Yeah, the problem is if they renew that or not, because they may get it when they purchase
that's
it,
very true.
but that might be like for a year or so. So now a lot of times a vendor may call and say, "Do you want to renew this maintenance agreement?" And if they know what it's for, and then, like we tell them you should renew this, or you should keep this current, they'll do it. But if they don't know what it's for, and you've never mentioned to them you need to keep this maintenance agreement current, they'll say, "Well, I don't know what that is. No, we don't want that,"
hmm
and they won't get it.
Right.
I like the fact that Matt said sometimes they call. They always call. They always
Sometimes they call us and ask us, "Should we
Exactly.
renew this?" Most times the customer says no, and they just ignore it like it's any other sales call
Right.
or marketing call. So a lot of times they won't even remember that they were called and asked, "Do you want to renew this?" You know, it. And with I have some companies that they're in a bind right now because they're running software that's so old. It's like 15 or 16 years old.
Wow.
Or in some cases, in one case I'm thinking about particular, the company's out of business. And this is two of their critical applications, both of them in the same condition. Companies are out of business. If anything happens to those programs, I mean, we've told them there's nothing we can do. If this program all of a sudden stops working, there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
You need to get off of this program onto something current that can have support, because you can lose all of your data or just not have it accessible at any time. We've warned them over and over and over again till we're blue in the face. Every time there's the smallest issue with it, we tell them, this is not this is DOS-based software still.
Wow.
Yes, it's like a terminal, the window with the
Yeah,
blinking
I mean, it's
cursor.
terrible.
DOS.
So when they have a problem, I can just restore the whole directory from the server. It's just DOS.
Now, Matt,
that's-
oh, I'm sorry, and
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question for you. When you have these conversations, do you document it via email so when it does blow up in their face, and you can say, "Remember this? I sent you in August saying if you wanted it, and you said, heck no."
I usually do all that in email. Even if I talk
Nice.
to them,
Okay.
if I'm on site talking to them about it, I'll usually, when I get back to my office, email them and just say, "Hey, this is just a reminder that we recommend that you get this maintenance agreement and keep it current."
And that's a good tip.
It's an email reminder for them, and it's I can show that I've reminded them.
CYA. So when they want to blame you, like Matt's saying, you go, "Nope, you said you didn't want to buy it." So
Yeah,
CYA?
and that's common
What's CYA?
because a lot of times you're dealing with the office manager, and if the office manager says, "Nah, I'm not going to renew that," well, when things go bad, the owner will usually get involved.
right.
And the owner is looking to see where it broke down. How did we get to this point? He's going to talk to the office manager first. What happened? Well, this software crashed, and we can't do anything about it because it's so old, or because the company's out of business, or it's not supported anymore. Well, why didn't they tell us this? Well, I don't know why they didn't tell us. That's usually what their answer is. Because they know, or they may not remember, that we've told them. They're
Right.
gonna say, I don't know, I didn't know anything about this. So if the owner, and it's happened once or twice that I've had to tell the owner, no, we've been discussing this quite a while, and here's the emails, here's documentation that we've shown her, or that this needs to be taken care of. That hasn't often, but it's good to have it if it does happen,
Right.
Right. It definitely
especially when
does.
the owner gets involved.
Definitely does. Like especially when there are some stories that I won't share here, so because due to what happened, but there no, but there've been times where a project has gone bad and it costs $500,000, and they try to put the blame on you, and then you go, no, see this email, you told me not to do that, so it's not really my fault, it's your fault.
Yeah, people want to place blame
Yes.
for everything, even if it doesn't matter, whose fault it is. They still want to know.
Because the IT guy is the easiest guy to blame. If there's no Coke in the Coke machine, blame the IT guy. If the light doesn't work, blame the IT guy.
I've had
great.
I've had one person, as far as placing blame, he would go so far as he would never make a decision himself. He would always ask me, "What do you think? What do you think? What should I do?" Because my recommendation, whatever I said, he would go with, so he could always report back to his boss, well, this is what they told me to do.
Right. That happens a lot if you ever watch The Apprentice.
Oh, really?
Especially
Never watched it.
Yeah. No, you got to watch that. But I don't want to sidetrack you guys.
But this one particular place, I mean, I would never give him one single answer on purpose, because I knew what he was trying to do. So
What would you say? Well, what
I'll
do you
give him
think?
2 or 3 options. I say, here's your options. Here's the pros and cons. I say, you need to make a decision based on whatever your risk management policies are of the company. Are you more worried about this, or are you more worried about this?
Nice.
So here's your choices. Here's my 3 recommendations. Let me know which one you want. And he would always say, which one do you recommend? And I'd always say, well, which more important? Is this more important or this more important? Well, what do you think? Well, I don't know what's more important to you. You tell me what's more important to you. He would never make a decision.
Wow.
And I remember one time I was over there, and he asked for a recommendation about a network printer and scanner, one of those combination ones. And I gave him 3 options. Like I like to give him 3 options. So he asked me again, which one's the best one? I said, well, what's your criteria? Are you looking for speed? Are you looking for, is cost your main factor? What's your criteria for determining which one's the best one? Give me some input here. These are the 3. They're all fine. They all work. So he gave all the documentation to the part-time receptionist.
Awesome.
He said, I want you to research these 3 and give me your recommendation of which one we should get.
Get out. You mean this
Because-
guy he could just not make a decision?
He would not ever
capable.
I never saw him make a decision, ever. And I worked with him for years.
That's awesome. So you started messing with him after a while, giving him the 3 options.
When I knew he was doing, when I knew what he was doing, and some of the questions, even from the first time he would ask, the first time I said, well, I can't make that decision for you. I can give you your options, but you're more familiar with your company, what your risk management policies are, acceptable losses, budget. There's more than one. I can't make the decision. But when he gave that stuff to the part-time receptionist, I almost laughed right in front of him and her. She was like, okay.
I should have gave him a magic 8-ball. But here you go.
That's great. Yeah, bring that with you next time, Matt. That'd be awesome.
I mean, but yeah, people like that, sometimes they won't make decisions, but and it's all, some people might say, oh, they're comfortable making a decision for him, but I knew why he was doing it. I mean, I could have easily said, get this one, and I might have, had they realistically asked me,
Right.
But I can tell he's trying to place blame in
Right.
case something goes wrong.
Right. There's nothing wrong with recommending anything. But
No.
It's fun to mess with.
I don't mind. I definitely liked recommending. He asked, what should I get? And I gave him 3 good recommendations.
Right.
I just want to give him 1.
Good for you. That's funny.
And then all 3 worked.
deserved
And he
it.
says, which one do you have? I said, actually, I
have
have
about
each
3.
one of these 3 in my office.
That's awesome.
And I said, I have clients that use each 3 of these models. All of them are perfectly happy with them.
Nice one.
Yeah. So the customers, customers are fun. I like customers.
I could tell.
But again, bottom line is just, you're there to make sure things run smoothly. And I'm not as concerned with being blamed for something, because really, if it is my fault, I'll admit it's my fault.
Sure.
And I've admitted to customers, yes, we did that wrong, and we're going to make it right. So it might take us some time to get it right. Of course, you're not going to get a bill for it.
Plus, you're not
we're going to make this right.
You're
but
not recommending crap. I mean, you're recommending stuff that you believe in, I hope.
Right. Yeah. I tell them, I don't recommend anything that we don't use. But if there is blame to place, and if I feel that we are to blame, I mean, you got to be your reputation. Admit it. They'll respect it if you say yes.
Right.
This is partly my fault. We're gonna make it right.
Right.
And one thing you want to help customers with is you don't want to just blame other vendors off the bat. You got to use some tact and some judgment. Because if customers are tired of, they call this person says call this person. You tell them call this person. You want to avoid that. That's another reason why you want to be involved.
Right.
Because I'll start working on it, and we're not gonna be done until it's working.
Right.
I'm not gonna tell you it's their fault. Call them.
Right.
So I'm there to help. This is a perfect example. Last week, I was out somewhere and I got a call because the printer wasn't working. So I logged in remotely. I could ping the printer, but I couldn't get to the web interface of the printer. And we couldn't send any print jobs to it. It would just sit in the queue. I had to power cycle it, same thing. Of course, I asked her, are there any error lights flashing, any error message on the printer? No. Okay. I go on site, and of course, there's error lights flashing, and there's an error on the printer. And it's got some printer error code, and it's got some code that's specific to that printer, obviously. As I said, well, who sold you this printer? Do you have a maintenance contract with it? Yes. Let me call them. So they call him, and he says, well, I'm right around the corner. I'll be there in a few minutes. So, I could have left and said, okay, it's the printer. He'll come look at it. But I told the girl, I said, I'm going to wait. If he's only a few minutes away, I'm going to wait, because I want to, there's a good chance he's going to tell you it's not the printer. He might blame something else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but printer techs like doing that. If they not, I'm sure not all of them do. I'm sure there's great printer techs out there, but the ones I've encountered, they like to blame other people and other conditions.
Right.
So I'm waiting. And it's 20 minutes past, and this company's about 30 minutes from me. And the girl says, "I'm sorry. Do you want to just leave? Because I don't want to have you to wait for nothing." I said, "It's up to you." I said, "I'm happy to wait because I want to make sure this gets fixed for you." So she was okay. Well, we'll wait a little bit longer. So she shows up a few minutes later. He walks in, he looks at the printer, and he says, "Oh, this is a network error." I'm like, I agree it's a network error, but I think it's a network card on your printer that's the problem. No, that's not it. I said, what troubleshooting have you done to determine that? Because all you did was look at it. And he says, well, this error code. I says, this error code indicates that the network card on the printer is fine, but the network that connecting to it is bad. He says, no, it's a network error. I said, well, I agree. I said, let's look at what's involved in the network. You've got your network interface card on the printer. I've got my cable connects to a switch. I said, here's what I've done. I've used a different cable. I've connected to a different switch. I took the cable that was plugged into the switch, plugged it into the printer, to the computer next to it, and it works fine. No matter what cable or switch I connect the printer to, this error keeps staying on. So he finally spent a few minutes looking online, looked up the error code, and the error code actually is bad network interface card on printer port.
Really?
On the card.
So what did he say to that? He was your best friend.
He's like,
that.
"Oh, I'm about to order a new one." I was like, yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
I mean, that's what they pay you for, So, and really, if I would have left, he wouldn't have resolved the issue. he would have said it's a network error and left because he was already out the door when he said it's a network error. He was walking out the door. I said, no, wait. So I stopped him, got him back in there, and this is when we looked at it. So he was just going to leave, which means I would have got a call back as soon as I got back to my office saying he said it's a network error, even though I knew it wasn't.
Right.
I'll tell the customer, call him back. It's not a network error. It would have been a lot longer issue than had I just waited and we resolved it.
Right.
So, when possible, sometimes you might call support and they might say, we'll call you back in 4 hours. Well, obviously you're not going to wait there 4 hours. When that kind of thing happens, I'll usually tell them, look, when they call you, you call me, or I'll give if I can, I'll tell them, here's my alternate number, call me here.
Right.
Call me directly and not the customer. Because at least I can tell them what the error is and work with them at least to a point to where I can have the customer get involved and say, now you test it. So just, and when you badmouth vendors, it doesn't make you look good.
Right. You gotta stay and professional. No matter if you know that it's the guy's a doofus, you still gotta. It just looks bad.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, but I've seen people do it. I mean, and it's even like I said before, when you're replacing other techs, that you're coming after other techs. Don't badmouth them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of thing. They may have set it up so bad that it's hard to bite your tongue, but bite your tongue. Just say, we can change some things, have some recommendations to make you run more smoothly. Don't say, what idiot did you have in here?
Right.
You can tell it to your coworkers, but don't tell it to your customers.
Right.
And the same thing with vendors. Vendors, the vendors don't usually have the customer's best interest in mind. They want to get off the call. They're under pressure, I'm sure, to get calls closed out. I'm pretty sure call centers don't want you spending more time than necessary. They want you to resolve it at least to a point where you can close it and move on to the next call.
Right.
They reduce call times. They get to more calls. It makes you. That's how they're judged. So you can't blame it on them either. But that's why you're there to work with them. Don't let them hang up until the call's finished.
Right, and especially if you're a Microsoft certified partner, if you have an agreement, Microsoft, as much as we like to bash them, they will actually call you during a time window, and you'll have engineers work on your issue till it gets fixed.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're pretty good for the support at the business level.
Huh.
Well, that's the same support we have as a partner. Mm-hmm. I call a partner line. They'll call me back in a few minutes, and they will not hang up until it's fixed.
Right.
Wow.
So.
All right. Should I read an email here we got?
Sure.
This is from Steve from London, UK. I don't know if he wanted to read this on the show, Steve, but I figure what the heck. It's good email. He's got some ideas. He says, Steve, London, UK again. Great to be picking up tips from the masters in Podnutz Pro. Thanks to all who contribute. I've been serving mainly residential computer clients so far. Oops, hang on one sec. Plus a handful of very small business clients without servers. But now I really want to start to increase my business clients. Just throwing out ideas. I'd appreciate a show that covers topics like, what are the recommended books to prepare for business IT requirements? Is it a good idea to get the Microsoft Action Pack and practicing on a test SBS server for hands-on learning? If so, can it be tested on a standard PC? Buying a server just for testing could be costly. What are the most effective ways to get new business clients, show up at offices, and introduce myself? Is there a minimum recommended type and level of insurance? Thanks, Steve, and keep up the great show. And that's from Steve, London, UK. So there's some ideas that he has for the show. If anybody does have any ideas that they have any comments for the show, or you want us to cover a topic, we're open to hearing that. Just send me an email at mail@podnutz.com, and I'll send it to the guys, and we'll definitely make it a consideration about what we're going to be talking about on the show. We'd like to hear from you guys. So thank you, Steve. I don't know if Matt, do you have any input on that, or Lalo?
Yeah, I was going to say how I tend to learn over the years, if you got a beefy enough the machine, Virtual machines are great because you can build a server, you can build a client, and you can go at it. If you mess up, you just go back to like a snapshot and you're good to go. A lot of my environments that I had ideas I would actually produce in a test environment in a virtual virtual lab as closely as I can get to it, and it's really effective because you don't have to buy a $4,000 server. So.
What software do you use for the VM?
Freeware, a VirtualBox.
Okay, VirtualBox. Cool.
Yeah, I like the Action Pack. I think you have to be a Microsoft partner to buy the Action Pack. I'm not really sure.
I'm not sure either.
But the Action Pack, is good. But if you're going to start supporting businesses, and if you're a business, the best way to learn, I know it does cost money, but it's cost of having a business, is get yourself at the server. The server you learn on can be the server you use for your business. So if you want to learn how to use Exchange, and you can put it as a test box, but then actually use it in your business. Because when it's really in use is when you're going to get the most practice fixing it if something happens. Or learning how to administer it is actually using it. Having it host your email. If you don't want to host your live email, create a different email domain, and just use it for something else. But
that is the best way. I mean, that's how residential guys get started. They know how to fix their own stuff. Yeah,
and a server is a little more costly. A 5-pack, even if you just bought it outright, a 5-pack of small business servers, it's about $600, and then plus that's the license plus the hardware. So, it's got to be a 64-bit machine, but you could probably do it for $1,500 if you built it yourself plus the licenses, just to get started and learn. Right. And personally, I like Cybex books for books. I like the way they write, but that's just it's just, of course, personal preference.
No, it's good to know. Some books are just very drab.
Yep, they are.
Awesome. All right, well, again, thank you for that email, Steve. Anything else we want to cover, guys, before we end off the show? Matt?
Nope, I'm good.
Lalo?
Nope, and again, I'll say it again because I think if you get anything from this show, if you deal with an application, if you don't know how to deal with it, don't be embarrassed. Don't get frustrated. Many people have these maintenance contracts. Even if they don't, I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't fix application ABC, they'll have to pay for a support call, and which you would rather fix that problem in 2 hours than be on 3 days,
right,
and look like a fool.
Good one. All right, Lalo, people can reach you at lalonunez.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Matt, Podnutz forums, best place to ask you questions, right?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds pretty good. They can PM me. They can post something in the Podnutz Pro forum area.
Cool.
Yep.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody who tuned in, is watching, listening. Thank you guys for streaming this and downloading this. That's going to be it for Podnutz Pro for today. We are doing a show next week, right, Matt?
Next week should be. We may be a little behind schedule, but we should have one next week. Yes.
Well, for the guys, live guys might start a little late, but we will definitely have it out as a recorded podcast. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.